Jake Morrison sat quietly in the small metal chair, trying not to move too much. His hands were sweating inside his gloves, but he could not wipe them. The alien device attached to his chest was reading his body heat and heart rate. If the numbers changed too much, the aliens would know something was wrong. 3 months had passed since Jake started this mission. 3 long months of pretending to be someone else, living among creatures that wanted to kill every human in the galaxy. He had learned their language, copied their habits, and even ate their strange food. All of this was to get to this moment. The message had come 2 days ago, hidden in a normal trade report. His handler back on Earth had used their secret code to tell him about a special meeting. The aliens called it a planning session. Jake thought it would be about trade deals or peace talks. He was very wrong. The space station Nexus 7 was huge. It floated in empty space between human and alien territory. Many different species came here to talk business and make deals. Jake had been working here as a fake trade officer, using the name Kelmore. The aliens thought he was a half-breed from the outer colonies, someone with mixed human and alien blood. The human scientists had given Jake special medicine before he left Earth. It changed how his body looked to alien scanners. His blood showed different chemicals, his skin gave off different heat patterns, and even his smell was changed. To any alien test, Jake looked like a hybrid species that lived on the edge of known space. Now he was walking into the biggest meeting room on the station. The place was enormous, with seats arranged in wide circles going down toward a central stage. Thousands of beings could fit in here. Jake found his assigned seat in row 3, near the middle. He sat down carefully and looked around. The room was filling up with aliens from many different worlds. The Zephyrians were easy to spot with their big bug eyes and clicking sounds. They looked like giant insects that had learned to walk on 2 legs. Their skin was shiny black or dark green, and they moved with quick, jerky motions. Next to them sat the Sorrows, who looked like lizards the size of humans. Their skin was covered in scales that changed color based on their mood. Right now, most of them showed dark red and orange patterns, which Jake knew meant they were excited or angry about something. The Nebulans were harder to see, because they were made of gas and lived inside special suits. Their suits looked like glass bubbles filled with swirling clouds of purple and blue. They spoke through machines that turned their gas movements into words other species could understand. There were other aliens too, species that Jake had studied but never seen in person. Some looked like walking trees with many arms. Others had tentacles instead of arms and legs. A few were so strange that Jake could not even figure out which end was their head. All of these different creatures were here for the same meeting. Jake wondered what could bring so many enemies together in one place. He was about to find out. A loud sound filled the room like metal scraping against stone. This was how the Zephyrians called for attention. All the talking stopped, and every eye, sensor, and tentacle turned toward the stage. A large Zephyrian walked onto the stage. Jake recognized him from the intelligence files. Commander Vexstar, one of the most dangerous military leaders in the Alien Alliance. Vexstar was bigger than most of his species, with scars covering his dark shell and one of his compound eyes replaced by a metal implant. "Welcome, Elias," Vexstar said in the common trade language. His voice was like grinding glass, but Jake understood every word. "Today we discuss the final solution to our shared problem." Jake felt his heart start to beat faster. He forced himself to breathe slowly and think calm thoughts. The scanner on his chest could not detect any big changes in his body. "For too long, the humans have spread across our galaxy like a disease," Vexstar continued. "They take worlds that belong to us. They refuse to accept their place as a weak species. They continue to grow stronger and more dangerous with each passing year." The audience made various sounds of agreement. The Zephyrians clicked their mandibles. The Sorrows hissed, and the Nebulans created low humming noises through their suits. Jake's mouth went dry. This was not a trade meeting or peace talks. This was something much worse. "Today, we will review our intelligence on human weaknesses," Vexstar announced. "We will study their military tactics, their technology, and their psychology. We will learn exactly how to destroy them completely. A holographic display appeared above the stage showing a map of human space. Red dots marked human colonies, trade routes, and military bases. Jake could see his home world of Earth at the center, surrounded by dozens of smaller settlements. "Our scouts have been watching the humans for many months," Vexstar said. "We know their strengths, but more importantly, we know their weaknesses. Today, you will learn how to use this knowledge to win the war that is coming." Jake realized with growing horror that he was sitting in the middle of a war council. These aliens were planning to attack humanity, and they had been preparing for a long time. He was the only human in a room full of enemies, listening to them plan the destruction of his species. His training kicked in. Jake activated a small device implanted behind his ear. It would record everything he heard and saw. If he could get this information back to Earth, humanity might have a chance to defend itself, but first, he had to survive the next few hours without being discovered. One wrong move, one suspicious glance, and thousands of aliens would tear him apart before he could even reach for his weapon. Vexstar continued his speech, but Jake was barely listening now. He was thinking about how to get out of this place alive. The space station had dozens of docking bays, but they would all be watched. Security would be tight during such an important meeting. Jake remembered the emergency plans he had studied before coming here. There was a small courier ship, hidden in Cargo Bay 7, disguised as a maintenance vessel. If he could reach it, he might be able to escape and warn Earth about what was coming. The holographic display changed, now showing detailed images of human soldiers in combat. Jake recognized the uniforms of the Colonial Defense Force, the same organization he worked for. The aliens had been studying human military tactics, learning how to counter every strategy and weapon. "Notice how the humans always try to protect their weakest members," Vexstar said, pointing at the display. "They will sacrifice many strong warriors to save a few weak ones. This emotional thinking makes them predictable." Several aliens in the audience made sounds that Jake recognized as laughter. They thought human compassion was funny, a weakness to be exploited. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced it down. Getting angry would not help anyone. He needed to stay calm, learn everything he could, and then get this information to the people who could use it. The presentation continued for another hour. Jake watched and listened as the aliens discussed human technology, psychology, and military organization. They had learned much about humanity, but Jake could see they had made some important mistakes in their analysis. The aliens thought they understood humans, but they were wrong about many things. They saw human emotions as weakness, but Jake knew those same emotions could make humans fight harder than any other species. They thought human technology was inferior, but they were using old information that did not include humanity's newest developments. Most importantly, the aliens believed humans would give up quickly when faced with overwhelming force. They had never seen what humans could do when they were truly desperate. As the first part of the seminar ended, Jake began to hope that maybe, just maybe, humanity could survive what was coming. But first, he had to get out of this room and off this station before the aliens realized they had been talking about genocide in front of their greatest enemy. Commander Vexstar moved closer to the holographic display, his metal eye glowing red in the dim light. Jake watched from his seat in row 3, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair. The alien commander began to speak again, and Jake realized the real horror was just beginning. "Phase 1 of our analysis focused on human biology," Vexstar announced. The display changed to show a detailed image of a human body, with different parts highlighted in bright colors. "As you can see, humans are weak creatures. Their skin tears easily, their bones break under pressure, and they cannot survive in most environments without special equipment." A Soros general raised one of his clawed hands. "What about their healing abilities?" "Our scouts report that humans can recover from serious injuries." "True," Vexstar replied, clicking his mandibles. "But this healing is slow and requires medical treatment. In battle, a wounded human becomes a burden to his unit. They will waste resources trying to save injured soldiers instead of completing their mission." Jake felt sick listening to this clinical discussion of human weaknesses. These aliens were talking about his friends, his family, his entire species like they were studying insects under a microscope. The display shifted again, now showing brain scans of human minds. Different areas were marked with strange alien symbols that Jake could not read. The human brain is their greatest weakness, Vexstar continued. They are controlled by emotions rather than logic. Fear, anger, love, grief, these feelings make humans do stupid things that get them killed. A Nebulan advisor floated forward, purple gas swirling inside its containment suit. Its translation device spoke in a flat, mechanical voice. Elaborate on emotional exploitation tactics. Simple, Vexstar said, and Jake could hear the cruel satisfaction in his voice. Humans form strong bonds with their offspring and mates. They cannot think clearly when these bonds are threatened. Kill a human's child, and the parent will charge into obvious traps trying to get revenge. Capture a human's mate, and they will sacrifice themselves and their comrades for a rescue attempt. Several aliens in the audience made approving sounds. Jake wanted to stand up and scream at them, but he forced himself to stay still. His recording device was capturing everything. This information could save lives if he could get it back to Earth. We have identified key emotional triggers, Vexstar went on. Humans cannot abandon their wounded. They will risk entire units to save one injured soldier. They cannot ignore civilian casualties. Show them dead children, and they will make poor tactical decisions to prevent more deaths. The holographic display now showed images of human families. Parents with children, couples holding hands, soldiers helping wounded comrades. To Jake, these pictures represented everything good about humanity. To the aliens, they were a tactical manual for psychological warfare. A tall, thin alien with 4 arms stood up from the middle section. Jake recognized the species. They were called the Kethver, and they were known for their cruel intelligence. What about human unpredictability? Our previous conflict showed they often act in ways that make no logical sense. Vexstar's compound eyes focused on the questioner. This is a common misconception. Humans appear unpredictable because their emotions override their logic, but emotions follow patterns. Make a human angry, and they will attack without thinking. Make them afraid, and they will run or freeze. Make them desperate, and they will try impossible plans that always fail. Jake knew this was wrong, but he could not say anything. The aliens did not understand that human emotions could also be a source of strength. They had never seen humans fight harder when they were afraid or find impossible solutions when they were desperate. Now we move to human military doctrine, Vexstar announced. The display changed to show human warships and soldiers in various battle formations. Human military thinking is based on outdated concepts of honor and fair fighting. They announce their attacks, they try to minimize casualties, and they follow rigid rules of engagement. General Cruthin, a massive Soros with dark red scales, spoke up. Our intelligence suggests humans have effective weapons and defensive systems. Their technology is adequate, Vexstar admitted, but they use it poorly. Human commanders are taught to preserve their forces and avoid unnecessary risks. This makes them predictable. They will always choose the safest option, even when a dangerous attack would be more effective. Jake bit his tongue to keep from laughing. The aliens had completely misunderstood human military history. They had never heard of desperate last stands, kamikaze attacks, or the human tendency to achieve impossible victories through sheer determination. Human ships are well armed but poorly used, Vexstar continued. They fight in formation, following standard tactics that we have studied and learned to counter. They will not ram their ships into ours even if it would win the battle, because they value the lives of their crew too much. The display showed a detailed analysis of human weapon systems. Jake recognized most of them, but some of the technical specifications were wrong. The aliens were using old intelligence that did not include humanity's latest developments. Human energy weapons are limited by their power sources, Vexstar explained. Their projectile weapons are effective but require ammunition that can be depleted. Their defensive shields can be overloaded with sustained fire. A spider-like alien with 6 legs raised one of its appendages. What about human reinforcement patterns? How quickly can they respond to attacks? Human response time is their greatest weakness, Vexstar said, and Jake saw his mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. They centralize their command structure, disrupt their communications, and individual units become isolated and confused. They cannot adapt quickly to changing situations. This was partially true, Jake admitted to himself. Human military doctrine did rely heavily on communication and coordination. But the aliens were assuming that human units would fall apart without orders from above. They had never seen human soldiers take initiative when cut off from command. Their fleet deployment follows predictable patterns, Vexstar continued. They concentrate their strongest ships around their most important worlds. They leave their frontier colonies lightly defended, assuming they will have time to send reinforcements when attacked. The display now showed the locations of human military bases and fleet positions. Jake was horrified to see how much the aliens knew about human defenses. They had been watching and planning for months, maybe years. Human colonization patterns are also predictable, Vexstar said. They choose worlds with comfortable climates and abundant resources. They build their cities in defensible locations, but always near water sources. They follow the same basic design on every world they settle. Jake realized the aliens had been studying human behavior like scientists studying lab rats. They thought they had figured out every aspect of human civilization, but they were missing something important. The timeline for our operation is as follows, Vexstar announced, and Jake felt his heart stop. In 72 hours, we will begin simultaneous attacks on 17 human colonies. These worlds have been chosen for their strategic importance and weak defenses. The display showed a map of human space with 17 worlds marked in red. Jake recognized most of them: farming colonies, mining outposts, and research stations. Millions of innocent people lived on those worlds. Each attack force will consist of ships from multiple species, Vexstar explained. This will confuse human intelligence and prevent them from predicting our tactics. The attacks will be coordinated to prevent human reinforcements from moving between targets. Jake memorized every detail he could. Ship numbers, attack vectors, timing, everything that might help Earth's defenses prepare for what was coming. Phase 1 will eliminate human military presence on the target worlds, Vexstar continued. Phase 2 will destroy infrastructure and eliminate local population centers. Phase 3 will establish permanent occupation forces to prevent human return. The casual way Vexstar talked about murdering millions of people made Jake's stomach turn. These aliens saw humans as nothing more than pests to be exterminated. Questions? Vexstar asked the audience. A nebulon near the back spoke through its translator. What if humans attempt desperate counterattacks? Their history shows occasional irrational behavior when facing extinction. Impossible, Vexstar replied confidently. Humans are too civilized to attempt truly desperate measures. They will surrender when they realize resistance is hopeless. Their leaders will choose negotiation over mutual destruction. Jake almost laughed out loud. The aliens had no idea what humans were capable of when their survival was at stake. They had studied human civilization during peacetime, but they had never seen what humans became when they were truly threatened. As the presentation continued, Jake began to see the flaws in the alien plan. They were overconfident, they underestimated human adaptability, and they were using outdated intelligence. If he could get this information back to Earth, humanity might have a chance to turn the tables on their would-be destroyers. But first, he had to survive the rest of this meeting and find a way off the station before the aliens realized they had been planning genocide in front of their greatest enemy. The alien presentation continued for another hour, and Jake felt his hope growing stronger with each passing minute. The more he listened, the more he realized that these aliens had made serious mistakes in their planning. They thought they understood humans, but they were wrong about many important things. Commander Vexstar moved to a new section of his presentation. Human surrender patterns are well documented, he announced. When faced with superior force, humans will negotiate rather than fight to the death. They value individual lives too much to accept total destruction. Jake almost shook his head in disbelief. The aliens had obviously never studied human history very carefully. They had never heard of the Alamo or Thermopylae or the Warsaw Ghetto. They did not know that humans had a long tradition of fighting impossible battles when something important was at stake. Human leadership structure is another weakness, Vextar continued. They elect their leaders based on popularity rather than military skill. In times of crisis, these leaders will make decisions based on public opinion instead of tactical necessity. A Soros general raised his clawed hand. What about human military leaders? Surely they are more competent than civilian politicians? Human military leaders are trained to minimize casualties, Vextar replied. They will retreat rather than accept heavy losses. They will negotiate rather than fight desperate battles. This makes them predictable and easy to defeat. Jake wanted to laugh out loud. The aliens had completely missed the point about human military thinking. Yes, human commanders tried to preserve their forces when possible, but they also knew when to take risks. They had never seen human soldiers fight when their backs were against the wall. The presentation moved to human technology, and Jake paid close attention. This information could be crucial if he managed to escape. Human weapons. Technology is advancing, but slowly, Vextar explained. Their energy weapons are limited by power constraints. Their kinetic weapons are effective but require physical ammunition. Their defensive systems can be overwhelmed by sustained bombardment. Jake knew some of this analysis was already outdated. Human scientists had been working on new shield technologies and weapon systems. The aliens were basing their plans on intelligence that was several months old. Human starship design follows predictable patterns, Vextar said, showing images of human vessels. They prioritize crew comfort and safety over combat effectiveness. Their ships have many vulnerable points that can be exploited. This was another mistake. The aliens were looking at civilian ships and older military vessels. They had not seen the new warships that were being built in secret shipyards throughout human space. Human communication systems are their greatest vulnerability, Vextar continued. They rely on quantum networks that can be disrupted by specialized jammers. Cut their communications, and human forces become isolated and confused. Jake made a mental note about the jammers. If the aliens could disrupt human communications, that would be a serious problem. But he also knew that human commanders were trained to operate independently when necessary. A break was called in the presentation, and Jake watched as the various alien species moved around the amphitheater. Many of them gathered in small groups to discuss what they had heard. Jake stayed in his seat, pretending to read reports on his portable device. He was actually listening to conversations around him. And what he heard was very interesting. The aliens were not as confident as they appeared during the presentation. The human response to the Kepler station incident was unexpected, he heard a Zephyrian officer say to his companion. They adapted their tactics much faster than our models predicted. Human technology development has accelerated recently, another alien replied. Our intelligence estimates may be conservative. Jake knew about the Kepler station incident. It had been a small conflict 6 months ago when alien raiders attacked a human research station. The human response had been swift and effective. Using new tactics that surprised the attackers. At another table, a group of Soros were discussing human psychology. Their emotional responses are more complex than we initially calculated, one of them said. Fear can make them more dangerous, not less. The human concept of honor is also problematic, another Soros added. They will fight losing battles, for symbolic reasons that make no logical sense. Jake smiled to himself. The aliens were starting to realize that humans were not as predictable as they had thought. But it might be too late for them to change their plans. A nebulan floated past Jake's seat, its gas form swirling anxiously inside its containment suit. Human population growth rate exceeds projections, it was saying to another nebulan. If We delay this operation, they will become even more difficult to eliminate. Agreed, the second Nebulan replied. But their expansion patterns are becoming less predictable. They are establishing colonies in locations that do not fit their previous preferences. Jake knew why human expansion had become less predictable. Earth's government had started placing colonies in strategic locations rather than just comfortable ones. They were thinking more like military planners and less like peaceful settlers. The break ended, and everyone returned to their seats. Commander. Vexstar resumed his presentation, but Jake noticed that he seemed less confident than before. We will now discuss specific attack scenarios, Vexstar announced. Each target has been analyzed for optimal assault patterns. The holographic display showed the first target, a farming colony called New Kansas. Jake had visited that world during his training. It was home to 3 million people, mostly families who had moved there to start new lives. New Kansas is lightly defended, Vexstar explained. One small patrol squadron and a planetary defense grid. The population is mostly civilians with no military training. Resistance should be minimal. Jake knew this assessment was wrong. New Kansas might be a farming world, but many of its settlers were former military personnel. They had chosen farming as a second career, but they still remembered how to fight. The attack will begin with orbital bombardment of the defense grid. Vexstar continued. Landing forces will then secure the major population centers. Expected casualties, 90% of the human population. The casual way Vexstar talked about killing millions of people made Jake's blood boil. But he forced himself to stay calm. And keep listening. The presentation moved to the next target, a mining colony called Iron Ridge. This world was even more heavily populated, with 5 million people working in the asteroid mines. Iron Ridge presents unique challenges, Vexstar admitted. The miners have access to industrial explosives and heavy equipment. The underground facilities will be difficult to assault. Jake almost smiled. The aliens were starting to realize that attacking human colonies would not be as easy as they had thought. Miners were tough people who knew how to handle dangerous situations. We will use gas weapons to clear the underground areas, Vexstar said. This will minimize damage to the mining equipment while eliminating the human workforce. A Cathver? Officer stood up. What about human reinforcement fleets? How quickly can they respond to our attacks? Human fleet deployment has been carefully studied, Vexstar replied. Their nearest major base is 4 days away from any of our targets. By the time reinforcements arrive, the attacks will be complete. This was another mistake. The aliens did not know about the hidden supply depots and emergency response fleets that human intelligence had positioned throughout the frontier. Help could arrive much faster than they expected. Each attack force will consist of ships from at least 3 different species, Vexstar explained. This will prevent humans from developing specific countermeasures for any one enemy. Jake realized this was actually a weakness in the alien plan. Coordinating attacks between different species would be complicated. Each species had different weapons, tactics, and communication systems. Managing such a complex operation would be difficult. The presentation continued with more target analysis. Jake memorized every detail he could: ship numbers, attack routes, timing, and coordination plans. All of this information could be crucial for Earth's defenses, but as he listened, Jake also began to see a bigger picture. The aliens were not just planning to attack human colonies. They were planning to eliminate humanity as a species. This was not a military operation, it was attempted genocide. The final phase of the operation will target Earth itself, Vexstar announced, and Jake felt his heart stop. The human homeworld must be neutralized to prevent future resistance. The display showed Earth, beautiful and blue against the darkness of space. Jake's home, the birthplace of his species, was marked with red targeting symbols. Earth's defenses are formidable, Vexstar admitted, but they are designed to repel conventional attacks. They will not be prepared for the coordinated assault we have planned. Jake knew this was the most important information he had heard. If the aliens were planning to attack Earth, every human in the galaxy was in danger. He had to get this intelligence back to human command before it was too late. As the presentation neared its end, Jake began to plan his escape. He knew where the hidden courier ship was located, but getting there would be extremely dangerous. The station would be on high alert after such an important meeting. The seminar finally ended after 4 long hours. Jake's legs were stiff from sitting still, and his mind was buzzing with all the terrible information he had learned. As the alien delegates began to leave the amphitheater, Jake stood up slowly and stretched, trying to look casual. He watched the crowd of aliens moving toward the exits. Different species stayed in their own groups, talking in their strange languages. The Zephyrians clicked and buzzed at each other. The Soros made low hissing sounds. The Nebulans communicated through color changes in their gas forms. Jake waited until most of the crowd had left before heading toward the exit. He needed to blend in with the remaining stragglers without drawing attention to himself. His fake identity as Kelmer, the half-breed trade representative, had worked perfectly so far. But now came the dangerous part. The space station's corridors were busy with aliens heading back to their ships or quarters. Jake walked at a normal pace, checking his portable device like any other delegate reviewing meeting notes. But his heart was pounding as he thought about what he had to do. The hidden courier ship was in Cargo Bay 7, disguised as a maintenance vessel. Jake had memorized the route during his 3 months on the station. He would need to take the main corridor to Section C, then use the service tunnels to reach the cargo level without being seen by security. Cameras. Jake was halfway to Section C when he heard his fake name called out behind him. Trade Representative Kelmer? Jake's blood turned to ice, but he forced himself to turn around slowly. A Zephyrian security officer was walking toward him, holding a small scanning device. The officer's compound eyes glittered in the corridor lights. "Yes, officer," Jake replied, keeping his voice steady. "How can I help you?" "Routine security check," the officer said, his mandibles clicking. "There are some irregularities in your biosignature readings from today's session. We need to verify your identity." Jake's mind raced. The human technology that disguised his biological signals was good, but it was not perfect. Long exposure to alien scanners could reveal inconsistencies. He had been in that meeting room for 4 hours. "Of course," Jake said, forcing a smile. "I'm always happy to cooperate with station security. What kind of irregularities?" The officer held up his scanner and pointed it at Jake. "Your heart rate and stress hormones showed unusual patterns during certain parts of the presentation. This could indicate illness, emotional disturbance, or—" The officer paused meaningfully. "Deception." Jake felt sweat starting to form on his forehead, but he could not wipe it away without looking suspicious. "I was feeling a bit unwell today," he said. "Perhaps something I ate disagreed with me. You know how sensitive mixed-species digestive systems can be?" The scanner in the officer's hands beeped softly as it analyzed Jake's body chemistry. Jake held his breath, praying that his disguise would hold up under closer examination. The officer said, studying the readout. "The patterns are still unusual, but ... A loud alarm suddenly began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and an automated voice announced, "Emergency in Cargo Bay 4. All security personnel report to Cargo Bay 4 immediately." Jake's heart leaped with relief. His backup team had created the diversion exactly as planned. The explosion in Cargo Bay 4 would draw security away from other areas of the station. The Zephyrian officer's head snapped toward the sound of the alarm. His antennae twitched as he received radio communications through his implants. After a moment, he looked back at Jake. "This discussion will have to continue later," the officer said. "Report to your quarters and remain there until further notice. Do not leave Section B without clearance." "Understood," Jake replied, bowing slightly in the way that half-breeds were expected to show respect to full-blooded species. The officer hurried away toward Cargo Bay 4, along with several other security personnel who had been patrolling the corridors. Jake waited until they were out of sight, then immediately changed direction. Instead of going to his quarters in Section B, He headed for the service tunnels that would take him to cargo. Bay 7. The service tunnels were narrow and poorly lit. They were used by maintenance crews to move between different parts of the station without interfering with normal traffic. Jake had explored them during his first week on the station, claiming he needed to understand the facility layout for his trade work. As he crawled through the tight spaces, Jake could hear more alarms and announcements echoing through the stations. Walls, security teams were responding to the diversion, but they would soon realize it was a distraction. He did not have much time. Jake reached the access panel that led to Cargo Bay 7 and carefully opened it. He peered out into the bay, checking for guards or workers. The area appeared to be empty, but Jake waited several minutes to be sure. The cargo bay was enormous, filled with shipping containers from dozens of different worlds. The courier ship was hidden behind a stack of containers near the back wall, exactly where it was supposed to be. To anyone who looked at it, the ship appeared to be just another maintenance pod. Jake crept across the cargo bay, staying low and moving between the containers for cover. He was almost to the ship when he heard footsteps echoing from the bay entrance. "Check every container," a voice commanded in the Sorrows language. "The security alert may be connected to espionage activity. Look for anything suspicious." Jake's stomach dropped. A search team had entered the cargo bay. If they found the courier ship, his mission would be over. He pressed himself against the side of a large container and tried to think of a plan. The footsteps were getting closer. Jake could hear at least 3 different beings moving through the bay, checking containers and equipment. He needed to reach the ship, but he could not do it without being seen. Then Jake remembered the emergency charges he carried. Each human intelligence operative was given small explosive devices for emergencies. They were not powerful enough to damage the station's hull, but they could create enough confusion to cover an escape. Jake pulled out one of the charges and set it for a 30-second delay. He threw it as far as he could toward the other side of the cargo bay, then started running for the courier ship. The explosion echoed through the bay just as Jake reached the ship's airlock. The search team shouted in alarm and rushed toward the blast site. Jake typed the access code into the ship's door panel and dove inside as it opened. The ship's interior was cramped but functional. Captain Lisa Hart was already in the pilot's seat, her hands moving over the controls as she prepared for emergency departure. "About time," Lisa said without looking back. "I was starting to think you were not coming." "The aliens are more paranoid than we expected," Jake replied, strapping himself into the passenger seat. "How fast can we get out of here?" "Fast enough," Lisa said. "But it is going to be rough. The station will try to stop us as soon as they realize what is happening." Jake could hear more explosions and alarms from outside the ship. The search team had found the remains of his explosive charge and would soon realize that someone had used it as a distraction. "Jake Morrison, you are under arrest for espionage and sabotage," a voice suddenly announced over the station's communication system. "Surrender immediately or face the consequences." "They know who I am," Jake said, his stomach sinking. "My cover is blown? Then we better get out of here fast," Lisa replied. She fired up the ship's engines and began moving toward the cargo bay exit. The bay doors were already starting to close as station security tried to lock down all departures. Lisa pushed the engines to maximum power and aimed for the shrinking gap. "Hold on," she warned Jake. "This is going to be close." The small ship shot through the closing doors with only inches to spare. Jake could see the metal edges scraping past the viewports as they escaped into open space, but their troubles were just beginning. The space around Nexus 7 was filled with alien warships from the various species that had attended the meeting. Several of them were already turning toward the escaping courier ship. "Incoming fire," Lisa announced as energy beams began flashing past their ship. "These aliens really do not want us to leave." Jake was thrown against his restraints as Lisa put the ship into evasive maneuvers. The courier ship was fast and maneuverable, but it was not built for combat. They could not survive a prolonged fight against military vessels. "Can we reach the jump point?" Jake asked, referring to the location where they could activate their faster-than-light drive. Maybe, Lisa said, sweat beading on her forehead as she piloted through the storm of enemy fire. But it will be close. Very close. More alien ships were joining the pursuit. Jake could see at least a dozen vessels converging on their position. Some of them were launching fighters and interceptors that were even faster than the courier ship. Jake, Lisa said, her voice tight with concentration. You better start transmitting that intelligence data. If we do not make it out of here, at least Earth will know what is coming. Jake's hands flew over the communication controls, setting up a quantum burst transmission that would carry the intelligence data directly to human command. The signal would be almost impossible to intercept or block, but it would also reveal their exact location to every alien ship in the area. The small courier ship raced through space toward the jump point, with alien warships firing at them from all directions. Jake held onto his seat as Captain Lisa Hart threw their ship into wild spinning turns to avoid the energy beams. Jump point. In 30 seconds, Lisa announced, her knuckles white as she gripped the controls. If we can just hold on a little longer. A massive explosion rocked their ship as an alien missile detonated nearby. Sparks flew from the control panels, and warning lights flashed red throughout the cabin. Hull breach in the rear compartment. Jake reported, reading the damage displays. We are losing atmosphere. Emergency seals activated, Lisa replied. We can make it. We have to make it. Behind them, the alien pursuit fleet was closing fast. Jake counted at least 15 ships, including several heavy cruisers that could destroy their small vessel with a single shot. But the aliens seemed more interested in capturing them alive than destroying them completely. 10 seconds to jump, Lisa said. Come on. A Zephyrian interceptor screamed past their ship, so close that Jake could see the pilot's compound. Eyes through the cockpit window. The alien was trying to disable their engines without destroying the ship. 5 seconds, Lisa counted down. 3, 2, 1. Jumping now. The stars suddenly stretched into long lines as their ship entered faster than light travel. The alien pursuers vanished behind them, unable to follow without knowing their exact destination. Jake felt his body relax for the first time in hours. We made it, he said, hardly believing they had escaped. Do not celebrate yet, Lisa warned. That was the easy part. Now we have to make sure Earth can use the intelligence you gathered. The quantum transmission Jake had sent would reach Earth's communication centers in about 6 hours. Admiral Susan, Clark, and the Human Defense Command would have less than 3 days to prepare for the largest alien attack in history. Jake thought about all the information he had learned during the seminar. The aliens planned to attack 17 human colonies simultaneously. They expected humans to surrender quickly when faced with overwhelming force. They thought human emotions would make them weak and predictable. Lisa, Jake said, I think we might actually have a chance to win this thing. What do you mean? She asked, adjusting their course toward Earth. The aliens made mistakes, Jake explained. Big mistakes. They studied humans, but they did not really understand us. They think our emotions make us weak, but they have never seen what humans can do when we are truly angry. Jake began telling Lisa about everything he had observed during the alien meeting. The overconfidence, the outdated intelligence, the fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. By the time he finished, Lisa was smiling. You are right, she said. These aliens have no idea what they are about to face. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Susan Clark was sitting in her office reviewing routine reports when her communication console suddenly came alive with urgent signals. The quantum burst transmission from Jake's ship had just arrived. Admiral, her aide announced over the intercom. We have a priority 1 intelligence transmission from Operation Deep Cover. Admiral Clark felt her heart skip a beat. Operation Deep Cover was the code name for Jake Morrison's mission. If he was transmitting emergency intelligence, it meant something terrible was about to happen. Put it through immediately, she ordered. For the next hour, Admiral Clark listened to Jake's recorded intelligence briefing with growing alarm and determination. The scope of the alien threat was worse than anyone had imagined, but Jake had also provided crucial information about alien weaknesses and tactical errors. Get me the defense council, she ordered her aide. Emergency session? Tell them we have less than 68 hours to prepare for the largest coordinated attack in human history. Within 2 hours, every human military commander in the galaxy was participating in an emergency strategy meeting. Admiral Clark shared Jake's intelligence with the assembled officers, and together they began planning humanity's response. The aliens expect us to fight defensively, Admiral Clark explained to the group. They think we will try to protect every colony equally, but Jake's intelligence gives us a better option. General Robert Kane, commander of the Colonial Defense Force, leaned forward. What do you have in mind, Admiral? We let them think they are winning, Admiral Clark said with a grim smile. We evacuate the most vulnerable colonies and concentrate our forces where we can do the most damage. When the aliens attack, they will find empty worlds instead of helpless victims. The plan that emerged over the next several hours was bold and dangerous. Human forces would abandon the colonies that could not be defended, but they would turn the remaining worlds into traps. The aliens expected frightened defenders. Instead, they would face coordinated ambush using their own tactics against them. The aliens think human emotions make us predictable, Admiral Clark told her officers. They are about to learn that. Angry humans are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Jake's intelligence about alien communication systems proved especially valuable. Human engineers worked around the clock to develop jammers that could disrupt the coordination between different alien species. If the aliens could not communicate with each other during battle, their complex attack plan would fall apart. The evacuation of threatened colonies began immediately. Millions of civilians were moved to safer worlds, while volunteer militias prepared to make the aliens pay dearly for every empty building they captured. On New Kansas, the farming colony that was one of the primary targets, retired military personnel organized the remaining population into guerrilla units. They knew the aliens expected easy victory against helpless farmers. Instead, the attackers would face experienced soldiers who knew every inch of their home territory. The mining colony at Iron Ridge presented special opportunities. The underground tunnels that the aliens planned to gas could be turned into death traps. Human engineers rigged the mines with explosives and created false passages that would lead alien troops into carefully planned ambush. As the countdown to the alien attack continued, human forces prepared surprises throughout the target zones. Hidden weapon platforms were positioned along the expected attack routes. Fake communication signals were prepared to confuse alien intelligence. Most importantly, human psychology experts developed tactics specifically designed to exploit the aliens' overconfidence. Remember, Admiral Clark told her commanders in their final briefing, the aliens think they understand us, but they have never seen humans fight when our survival is at stake. They expect us to be emotional and irrational. Let us show them just how rational human anger can be. 68 hours after Jake's escape from Nexus 7, the alien attack began exactly as he had predicted. 17 fleets from multiple species approached their target worlds, expecting to find frightened defenders and easy victories. Instead, they found coordinated resistance that seemed to anticipate their every move. Human forces used the aliens' own intelligence against them, turning expected weaknesses into devastating strengths. On New Kansas, Zephyrian landing forces found empty cities and farms. But as they spread out to search for the missing population, they walked into carefully planned ambushs. The emotional farmers fought with cold, calculated fury that the aliens had never imagined possible. At Iron Ridge, the alien gas attacks filled empty tunnels while the real defenders struck from hidden positions. The complex underground network that was supposed to be a weakness became a maze of death traps for the invading forces. Throughout human space, the pattern repeated. The aliens had planned for human emotions to make them weak and predictable. Instead, they found that human emotions, anger, determination, love of freedom, made them more dangerous than any alien species had ever faced. The communication jammers worked perfectly, disrupting coordination between different alien fleets. Species that had planned to work together found themselves fighting alone against enemies who seemed to know exactly what they were going to do. By the end of the first day of fighting, the alien assault was in complete disarray. The coordinated attack had become a series of separate battles, each one turning into a disaster for the invaders. Jake Morrison, watching the battle reports from Earth, smiled as he realized the ultimate irony. The aliens had held a seminar on killing humans, but they had done it in front of the one person who could turn their own knowledge against them. The war that was supposed to end humanity instead became the beginning of human dominance among the stars. The aliens had tried to study human nature, but they had learned too late that the most dangerous thing about humans was not their weaknesses. It was their refusal to accept defeat. Jake had saved his species by sitting quietly in row 3 and listening to his enemies plan their own destruction. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from fighting, but from simply being in the right place at the right time with the courage to act when it mattered most.